Hey everyone, welcome to the sky this month for March of 2026. And finally, at long last, we are headed out of winter. Looks like the cold weather is behind us, and with it, the bad skies. The last week or so has had a nice spat of clear skies. Maybe the seeing in transparency wasn't exactly the best, but after the past few months we've had, a clear sky is a clear sky. And so we're about a week away from the spring equinox, so here's hoping that the warmer weather comes quicker and stays, and with it, those clear skies. And so I'm going to hop right into it this month, and as usual, we will start with our naked eye sky. And so, of course, I have it set for tonight, our meeting night, Friday the 13th of March at 10 o'clock. And so this is what you'll see stepping out of the meeting tonight. And we will begin, as always, over to the west. And so here you can see our winter constellations, Orion and Taurus and Canis Major over there in the south, are all now slowly starting to get down towards that western horizon and beginning to set earlier and earlier. And around midnight or so this time of the year, they are beginning to completely set and get down underneath the horizon. Back to 10 o'clock here. We can see over here our fall constellations, Andromeda, Triangulum, Aries, and Cetus are fully set. Andromeda Galaxy right there getting very, very low as well. And so this is pretty well your last chance until the early morning hours of the summer to see the winter Milky Way and your winter deep sky objects. Moving up towards zenith here. Whoa, what happened there? There we go. Moving up towards zenith. Let's get over to the west. We have Gemini still nice and high in the sky with Castor and Pollux right there. Cancer the Crab, Leo Minor, Camelopardalis, Auriga, and Capella are all still fairly high up there. And right above us we have Lynx directly overhead. And then moving down over towards the eastern sky, we have our spring constellations, which are starting to rise earlier and earlier as we move into April. Up all the way now, we have Leo and Leo Minor. Coma Berenice is right there. And then towards midnight now, Virgo and Bootes, Corona Borealis are fully risen above the horizon. Hercules is starting to rise as well. And then over here in the south, stretching all the way from the southeast all the way to the southwest, is Hydra. And I will get back to Hydra in a little bit. Moving over towards our north, northwest, and northeast, you can see this time of the month around midnight, there's Hercules like I mentioned. Perseus is setting over in the northwest. Cepheus is down low with Cassiopeia. And the Big Dipper and Ursa Major has swung around the pole and is up nice and high in the sky. Prime location and prime time for viewing all the galaxies up over in this area of the sky. And so that is your naked eye for March. And now we will get into the moon. Now, unfortunately, it's not the greatest month for the moon. The main event of March has already passed. That, of course, was on the morning of the 3rd. That was the total lunar eclipse. I unfortunately did not see it. I was clouded out from Niagara. But I know some of you did manage to get up and get out there and see it through the clouds and the haze. And it was, of course, very, very low, reaching totality just as the sun was rising. And again, pretty cloudy morning. But some of you did get some nice shots of it, and I'm looking forward to seeing that in the EH. That being said, our moon for this month, we already had full moon, of course, on the 3rd, total eclipse morning. Last quarter on the 11th, full moon on the 19th, and first quarter on the 25th. And so this next week is a pretty good week for you for some darker and moonless skies. And as for lunar events, there's only a couple worth noting between now and our next meeting. The first is on the night of the 20th. So let's skip ahead right there. Back just before sunset. And as you can see, over there in the west, we have a very, very nice slim crescent moon joined by Venus just after sunset. And of course, this is the best time of the year to see that Earth shine. The Earth shine, of course, is when light reflected off of the moon hits the Earth and then is reflected back onto the quote-unquote dark side of the moon, meaning that even though in its orbit right now only the far side of the moon and this little sliver here is actually directly lit up by the sun, we here from Earth can still see the quote-unquote dark side of the moon. And you can very faintly see it here, and this is what it'll look like to your naked eye and to your scope, and I'm sure even our beginners have noticed this at some point. It's a very, very cool effect, and it's just so beautiful to see, especially in that springtime sky. And there you go on the 20th, joined by Venus right there. And then we'll follow the moon along towards Cancer on the night of the 27th. So moving up along here. Actually, there you go, on the 24th, I did put this in the EH article. The moon's about a degree away from Elnath, which is the second brightest star in Auriga. And so that's a cool little conjunction there. Not an occultation, but close enough. That'll look nice in low power field or binoculars. And then on to the 27th. Skip ahead till it's a little darker. We can see the moon is just skirting by M44, the Beehive cluster. And this does happen regularly, happens relatively frequently, because it is on the direct orbital path of the moon. Same with M45, the Pleiades. So the moon does, from time to time, cover both of them. On the 27th, it doesn't get fully across. It's not occulting the cluster, but it is skimming its outskirts. And we'll zoom in, and it'll pop up real quick. There we go, M44, the Beehive cluster. Beautiful, beautiful open cluster right in the heart of Cancer the Crab. And there is the moon less than a degree away. So that'll make for a very, very nice photo opportunity and a very, very nice view in binoculars, or again, a low power scope. And so let's get into our planets this month. So Mercury is a morning object this month, only for a short while. Let's head back here to the 16th in the morning. And there you can see right there along the eastern horizon, very, very low, we have Mercury poking out around 7 o'clock, and this is just before sunrise. There is the moon on the 16th as well. And so from the 16th until the end of the month, as it moves away from the sun, Mercury is visible low along that horizon. We can even bring it back a little bit to around 650. And as we move on, you can see it gets higher and higher there. But of course, the sun also rises earlier and earlier, kind of canceling it out. But let's go around April 1st at 6:30. If you have a nice clear low eastern horizon, you'll be able to pick out Mercury there relatively easily, because it will still be bright enough and out early enough to pick out with the naked eye. So let's go to Venus next, and I will head back to the meeting night in the evening sky. And over on the other side in the west. And there's Venus right there. Of course, like I said, joined by the moon on the 20th, but Venus is in the west all month long, and it is getting higher and higher and staying out longer and longer into April. Again, the earlier sunset times sort of counteract a little bit, but we'll watch it from now until the 10th, which is our next meeting date in April. And you can see there's Venus higher and higher. And moving into the end of April and May, it is going to put on a show for us this spring. Sticking around, can't see it behind this tree here, sticking around for at least an hour or two after sunset. And that starts off right now on our meeting night going into May. So Venus will be there joining us all spring long in the west. Now Mars is potentially visible extremely low in the east, even lower than Mercury in the first week of April, but I'm not counting on that. If you want to try your shot at it, go ahead. It's going to take very, very clear, steady skies, a very, very flat horizon, and a lot of luck to see. So I am discounting Mars for this month. Now Jupiter. of course, as we saw earlier, is still nice and high up in Gemini right here. And you can see 10 o'clock tonight, and Jupiter is up until about 3, 4 a.m. when it begins to set. And all month long, there it is, up in Gemini, joined close enough by the moon on the 25th and 26th. And then into April, still even at 10 o'clock, high enough that you'll be able to get enough observing of it in right up until May. So Jupiter is there all month long for us. Saturn and Neptune, unfortunately, are too close to the sun. They will both poke around on the other side in the morning sky later in April and into May. And Uranus is over in Taurus too, all month long, should you want to try your hand at the 7th planet and its many, many fainter moons. And on the topic of the solar system, this is a potential object. So we have comet MAPS, M-A-P-S, C2026A1. Now, comet 2026A1 is a sun-grazing comet that was discovered earlier this year in January. It's of the same class of comets as Comet Lovejoy back in 2011, which means that as this comet, and as these types of comets, come really close to the sun and graze the sun before either being burned up or coming around the other side, they have the tendency from time to time to flare up extremely brightly, to become not just naked eye objects, but great naked eye objects. And there is the potential for that with this comet in the first week of April this year. So we will go ahead here to the 3rd. Unfortunately for us Northern Hemisphere observers, it is very low in Cetus and very close to the sun, but it will move away as it reaches its closest pass on the 5th. And so we can actually follow it right here. Let's say beginning around the 28th, just after sunset, and then coming around the other way and back out again, should it survive its encounter after April 5th. Very, very low in the west. There could potentially be a naked eye comet for us. So right now it's about magnitude 10, I believe, and potentially could get up to magnitude -3, -4, depending on how this interaction goes. I can't predict it. We don't know if it's going to burn up. Who knows? Time will tell. But keep an eye out very low in the west and keep following that comet right there because, again, could end up being a stunner this year. Very unpredictable, so we'll play it by ear. And so that is our solar system. And so let's move into the deep sky. Let's go towards the end of the month here. 31st, 10 p.m. Let's go 11 p.m. And so, of course, as I wrote about in the EH article, March is our Messier Marathon month, which means for our beginners, the Messier Marathon is a short 2 or 3 week window at the end of every March and early April, where you have the potential from our latitude to see all 110 Messier objects in a single night. It is a feat. It's very difficult to do. It requires you being out and up all night long, and it requires some skill and some luck to see the objects at either end, which might be drowned out by the evening or the morning twilight, but it can be done. Now, I put a lot of, I put information about it in our EH article, and I linked to a Celestron article that lays out everything you need, including a list of objects to view in order. And so if you're interested in doing a Messier Marathon, there's plenty of resources online. I could sit here talking for hours about it. But like I said in the EH, one thing I will say, if you try it out, dress very, very warm because those 3 a.m. mornings at the end of March can get a lot colder than you expect. And prepare for a lot of dew. But plenty of information online. Check out the article, check out that link, and let me know if you try your hand at it this year and see how many objects you got. And even then, if you don't decide to do it all in one night, this is the time of the year where you can see all 110 Messier objects. So you can spread it out over a couple weeks or a couple nights and try your hand at getting all of them this time of the year. And for deep sky this month, in the talk at least. I will do a more in-depth article next month, but for the talk this month, we're going to focus here on Hydra. Hydra is the largest constellation area-wise. You can see right there the water snake stretches along from the southeast all the way up to the southwest, and it is a huge, huge winding constellation. Sometimes overlooked because it's not the brightest constellation and there aren't too many bright objects in it. And again, as I said before, Pyxis and Antilla, Corvus, Crater, Sextans, constellations you really don't hear about. But nonetheless, there are some things to see in this area of the sky. Let's get the moon out of the way here. April 4th. What am I doing here? There we go. April 4th, April 5th, around 11 p.m. Trying to get that pesky moon out of the way. There are a few objects to try and pick your hand at in this area of the sky. Mostly beginner objects, but there are a couple good intermediate and certainly plenty of expert objects. So we'll start off with one that's not actually in Hydra, but it's right up here in Cancer. And this is M67, the GoldenEye cluster. This is a very, very nice open cluster here. Magnitude 6.9. Right there, it's great for a low power scope or binoculars. It's an overlooked Messier object because of its proximity to M44, the bigger and brighter one up over here in the same constellation. But it's right above the head of Hydra, visible all night long, and a very, very nice beginner object to take a look for. There are a few other Messier objects in Hydra at the very opposite side of it. We can see down here underneath Corvus, we have M68, which is very nice globular as well, magnitude 7.3. Little denser core, and this one spreads out nicely all around it. You can resolve quite a few of these stars, and it is great at medium power and a nice size scope. There's also M48 on the other side, near Monoceros over here, which is the brightest deep sky object in Hydra. This is another very, very nice open cluster, spread out, big bright stars, magnitude 5.8, a great binocular object for you there. And the final Messier object, I can't actually see it on here right now, so let me search it up, is Messier 83, right down there by the horizon. So magnitude 7.5, this is the Southern Pinwheel Galaxy. Now this is a beautiful, beautiful barred spiral galaxy. Again, magnitude 7.5 face on, and it doesn't ever rise too high from Hamilton, unfortunately. We can go through later into the night around 2 a.m. and what's our altitude right here? 16.5 degrees above the horizon. That's about as high as it's going to get for us. So you will need a dark southern sky. Make sure you're not looking over any lights. A low southern horizon. And you will need to stay up fairly early this time of year to see it. But again, it is a beautiful, beautiful galaxy. And in an 8 or 10 scope, you can resolve these spiral arms. And it just looks absolutely fantastic. And this is also good for beginners to practice because, again, depending on your scope and your experience, it's not the easiest to star hop to. It's kind of out there in the middle of nowhere. And the more the more magnification you push on it, the more you might have luck at seeing those spiral arms. So those are your Messier objects in Hydra. And one other object of note right down over here, magnitude 8.6, is NGC 3242. Planetary nebula known as the Ghost of Jupiter. Stellarium also has the Eye Nebula or the Diamond Nebula. And this is a nice, small, compact, but beautiful, beautiful planetary nebula. Again, it is very, very small, so in a smaller scope or low magnification, it looks almost like a star, just a blue star. But if you crank up your mag and put in a smaller eyepiece in there, get some really high magnification, it begins to resolve into this very, very almost circular shape. And it does have this blue tinge to it, this blue color to it when you're looking at it. Of course, fainted to naked eye, but you can't see it. And depending on your scope, like I said, you may be able to see that nucleus in there with the ring structure. But this is definitely a challenge because it is so small and so compact that you're really going to need to push that magnification and hope for some clear, steady skies. Add that one to the list because that is a great planetary to see. And then otherwise in Hydra, as I'm sure you noticed looking over at M83 down here, this area of the sky is chock full of hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of galaxies. Now, not all of these are bright, magnitude 12.85, magnitude 12.2, 11.81, 15.5, forget that one, Seashell Galaxy. But there are literally hundreds and hundreds of galaxies all throughout Hydra, all the way along in through the constellation. And for deep sky observers, especially ones with some big light buckets, some big apertures, our 10 and 12 inch scopes, there are quite a few that you can pick out and you can see them fairly easily. NGC 3923, magnitude 9.8 here. And there are just so many, again, all very, very difficult to see apart from the few bright ones. But literally hundreds and hundreds of galaxies as you follow the constellation all the way up. And so if you want to try your hand at that, it is a little bit lesser known than, of course, the Virgo cluster because the galaxies aren't as bright and are a little bit more spread out, but they are still all there in great numbers all over the sky in Hydra. And one last cluster of note is the Hydra Galaxy Cluster, which is centered around NGC 3309. Right there. Again, this one is definitely for our deep sky observers with big scopes, but centered around HIP 51979, which is magnitude 4.85. Technically a naked eye star. You can see this cluster of about 10 or so bright enough galaxies, NGC 3309 being the brightest, magnitude 10.9, magnitude 13.96, 13.03, 12.36, 13.8. So all over the map here, but quite a few different galaxies, and with a large scope, and especially for our astrophotographers, this makes a very, very good challenge object. So that is the Hydra Galaxy Cluster. And all of these galaxies in this area of the sky should prep you for next month, which of course will focus on the Virgo cluster right over here, but we'll leave that till April. And so that is your sky this month for March into April of 2026. Here's hoping for clear skies, here's hoping for a bright naked eye comet, and here's hoping that we can all get out there again and enjoy all that the night sky has to offer us at long last after sitting indoors all winter long. So thank you all for joining, and I will see you all next month.